My talk is called Green Revolutions Revisited, Women, Biodiversity, and Folk Knowledge in Rural Punjab. And I recently graduated with a degree in environmental science, but what I really look at is kind of how humans and the environment really relate to each other as one system. So I don't just look at environmental issues or human beings, but really look at the relationship between humans and their attitude to the environment and how that shapes what's around us. The community that I really am focused on is the Punjabi or Sikh community. So without further ado, I'll get into my presentation. Okay, so just to give you an overview about what I'll be talking about today, I'm going to go through the Green Revolution in Punjab. Then I'm going to walk you through my research methods a bit. Then I'm going to talk about women and biodiversity in traditional farming systems. So just to clarify, that really means kind of biodiversity in farming sort of before the Green Revolution, then women and biodiversity today, and then how this can really shape a new ecological discourse for Punjab right now, how it's relevant in the present. So the Green Revolution in Punjab. What the Green Revolution really was an agricultural experiment that took place in Punjab around the Cold War period. So there are a lot of famines going on in South Asia at the time, a lot of starvation, and there's also this fear that with that starvation there'd be civil unrest, and the rural areas would kind of, kind of fall into communism or absorb some of the Red Revolution. So the US government, it was around the time of Lyndon B. Johnson's administration, so US government via the Ford and Rockefeller Foundation sponsored new packages to invest in high yield crops or cash crops in Punjab. So you had this transfer of technologies going to Punjab, mostly high yield seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, farm machinery, displacing a lot of the indigenous cropping pattern that existed in Punjab, and also really focused on wheat and rice. So within about a decade of the Green Revolution coming in Punjab, you had an 8-fold increase in crop production. That's 8 times the amount of crops that were being produced before. And it really changed the entire natural resource base of the region, and I really mean the environment. Okay, so biodiversity, what a concept. What does it mean? Biodiversity is really the diversity of life that exists in an environment. And what this means is the diversity of plant life, diversity of animal life, diversity of microbial systems in soil, so like all the worms and whatnot. So it's really the whole picture that makes up an ecosystem. And what we have here in this slide are a lot of the indigenous crops that were produced in Punjab before the Green Revolution. And on the top row, you'll see from left to right, you'll see wheat, sorghum, millet or bajra, and then you have oats. On that last picture is oats. Then right underneath that, then you have chole. The white one is sesame. Next to that, that's actually a peanut flour. Next to that is flax. And then beneath that, we have a pipal tree. Then we have a tali tree, kikkar tree, and then saberi or a mulberry tree. So if we look at Punjab before the Green Revolution, this is sort of the landscape that we'd see, but a lot of this was kind of mixed together in different patterns. All of these crops were growing together. You had chole mixed up with the bajra. You had all these things kind of there to preserve the soil nutrients and also to preserve the water systems that were in place. So just to take you through my research, I went to Punjab for 2 summers. I spent about a total of 5 months there. First time was just to kind of really see what was possible. Second time was like, I'm going to do it. So I went to the rural areas and I interviewed 70 women in Faridkot and Barnala. But basically these are within the Malwa belt, which is kind of ecologically challenged and also economically challenged for the farming community. Then in addition to that, I did about 20 other interviews with male farmers, union leaders, the different departments in Punjab, so the Science and Tech Council, the Organic Farming Council, the Forest Department, the Water Department, Punjab University, Punjab Agriculture University professors, and also other South Asian environmental orgs like out in Bengal, there's this group called Bij Bachao Andolan, which is really focused on seed conservation. So the first thing I did is I went to Punjab and just like, I really want to know about agriculture before the Green Revolution. So I interviewed the best people for that, and that was the elder generation. So I spoke to a bunch of elder women. First started with male farmers, and I realized people weren't talking to the women, so I went to focus on the women. So I focused on women and biodiversity in traditional farming systems. And essentially what a lot of the women were saying to me was that they were out in the fields. And even though right now there's a huge emphasis on Punjabi masculinity in farming, huge emphasis today, women were really out in the fields earlier. And so women mentioned to me that they'd be out in the farms with their families harvesting crops at a really young age. They knew about the farming process, from seeding to planting to the fertilizers. There wasn't this dichotomy between the field and being in the home. So all the homes were kacha back then. Now they're pakka, so they're all kind of made of cement. But before, there was a lot more fluidity between the field and the house. And also there was minimal housework. So all that time that really goes into livestock in Punjab today, taking care of livestock, and also cooking, cleaning, housework, tending children. It was a very different type of situation back then, and we're going to hear about that through some quotes. So Shinder Kaur, who is about 70 years old in Barnala district, said to me, she said, at that time, everyone used to harvest crops together. The entire family would go together to the farm. They did it on their own. Girls would go and boys would go. They used to sit together, plant the crops, and harvest the crops. Chacha, chachi, taya, tai, the entire family would be working on the farm together. Harvinder Kaur, age 67, said to me, at that time, there was not much kitchen work. Just make chutney, rotis, lassi, dahi, makhni, put it together and take it out to the field. Then the woman would come home in the evening when they had to make roti and sabji. So a lot of time spent by these women in the fields. And what they observed in these fields was a lot of the natural surroundings, the biodiversity that existed in Punjab before. So women are possessing knowledge about the biodiversity in the fields, the different crops that were there. They're processing the crops for household use, so really grinding the wheat so they can consume it. They're using this for traditional foods and medicines. And they're also saving and preparing a lot of these seeds for the harvest. So the women are saving this genetic material for the harvest. So Baljit Kaur, who is about age 74 from Faridkot, said to me, during that time, we used to have crops like makki, bajra, jowar in the winter, while in the summer we would have kanak and jong, or oats occasionally. We also had mungpali, which is peanuts, til, sesame seeds, alsi, flaxseed, and pulses like mort, ma, masar, kale chole, guare, as well as tare mire, or arugula. The wheat used to be of one color, almost similar to bajra. So you really get a sense of what was in Punjab before this emphasis on rice and wheat. Shinder Kaur said to me, we had chara, kabutar, tote, we had one sparrow named Doomni Chidi, we had mor, gatara, kogar, illagirj, hiran, and roj. Then she talked to me about the trees. The trees back then were talia, belia, nim, beri, tut, toddi, jamun, and amrud. She's about 72 years old, so if we go back, around 1940? Yeah, okay. So the other thing is that women were also saving the seeds from the crops and keeping them in the house. So they weren't really dependent on money lenders and therefore also buying the seeds from outside. It wasn't that there weren't seed markets, but a lot of this conservation also happened within the home. So Shinder Kaur said to me, we used to remove the seeds from the crops when we would bring them to the house. We used to take them from the house and then plant it however much we needed. We pressed all of it and everything became one. When we cleaned up, then we would separate and keep the seeds with us. If the seeds were suitable for livestock, we would give some to them, but we used to keep all the seeds like this in our home. And this is just a picture of, I guess, seed diversity. So this idea of taking the seeds from the crops and preserving them in like a little little bottle or even a bag in your home and using that to plant again. And then again, so a lot of this was also part of Punjabi folk agricultural heritage. So the crops are part of the folk cultural knowledge. They're prevalent in the women's communal spaces, and they're also, women mostly talked about Trinjan and Tiyan and Lori. So how these crops used to come into either the Gidda songs or the dance or the boliyan, like Bajra you hear about, right? So how a lot of these would come into the different spaces. So Trinjan, they spoke to me about how they'd always get out there with their charkhas, and they'd be basically spinning until like all night, and then they'd have like small dishes here and there. But a lot of this was part of the agricultural heritage. So Malvinder Kaur said to me, during Tiyan, we used to eat rotiyan made of makki, bajra, and kanak, and kheer. And during Sawan na mahina, we used to prepare gulgule. When the girl used to go to her native village, her sas would give her seviyan to take along with her. Tiyan used to be like this. Now Tiyan have ended. So a lot of the women were talking about how a lot of these folk traditions that were in the villages before Green Revolution and sort of the expansion of the world markets had been eradicated now. So this is just a picture from Trinjan. So women in biodiversity today in Punjab. So when I actually talked about this with university professors, they looked at me like I was crazy, because why are you even bringing this topic up? And I think what's really relevant is that because Punjab has been under the cash cropping system for so long, if we really want to understand the ecosystem, usually it's women who possess that knowledge, because the cash crops are really targeted to men, and women have a lot more knowledge of the lesser known crops. So when we're thinking about restoration, we're thinking about kind of looking at ecological balance in Punjab, a lot of this, women become very precious at that moment. So I teamed up with this organization called Women Action for Ecology, and they were really working on reviving this knowledge, women's knowledge of biodiversity in Punjab. So this was really focused on some of the indigenous foods, so bajra, makki, jowar, jo, and karnak. So that's millet, wheat, sorghum, oats, and corn. Organic vegetable gardens, and also seed saving. So some of you guys see that out in California, but they're really talking about that within Punjab, and it's really about going back to some of the traditions, getting the fertilizer from the livestock. So this is one of the Trinjans that they had planned. I think this one was in Pingalara, actually, but they were really focused on planning these events in the villages. So they'd basically get all the bibiyan together, because a lot of the bibiyan are usually within their households, and they'd get them together, and they'd bring out the charkhas, and so they had spinning wheel competitions for the elder women, and then they'd have, oh no, I think this is an older presentation, they'd have women singing boliyan, so they had a lot of the elder women singing boliyan, and then the women would actually bring back a lot of the traditional foods that they used to eat that really were based off of the cropping pattern in Punjab before. So if you look at like this saag here, isn't just saag. It's made of bathu and chulai, which are basically indigenous plants that existed, and the women can identify these plants. And then you had all these like pinya are made of. Some of them were made out of bajra, some of them were made of jowar, some of them were made out of til, or sesame seed. And then you had khichdi. The yellow khichdi is made out of makki, and then you also had bajra, the khichdi kind of down in front of the little boy all the way at the end. So that's made out of millet. So not rice. Like you don't see rice really too much in the picture. These are different rotis. So you have makki, bajra, and karnak, and then different chutneys. And then these are some of the organic vegetable gardens that women had. So this is really to get women back involved in sort of the farming process, and really to recognize their role in keeping families healthy and giving them nutritional food. Okay, so Malkit Kaur said to me, I thought, I really have the desire to plant vegetables in our home. We have such a wonderful wide open space here. So I started planting sabjiya here and there. Then I started adding water and kept planting. When the kaddu and tori are done, then I'll plant mooli, gajar, and all the vegetables from Sial. And she said, I believe it's very good to give your family healthy vegetables. I'm about 60 years old and I don't have the joint problems like other people in the village. So if you guys have been to Punjab, this is a very common thing. I could even feel it where the urea from the fertilizers is so prevalent in the food system that so many of the younger kids even have joint problems. So this woman of 60 years old, because she'd been harvesting these crops on her own, didn't have a lot of these problems. Gurdeep Kaur said to me, "It seems like we get a good amount of food for the family from the garden. Some days we do not." Then I said, "Do you feel like there's a difference in the taste?" And she said, "Yes, I feel like there's a difference in the taste because we don't put pesticides and fertilizers. Now we have so many sabjis. It's been about 3 months since we've gotten vegetables from anywhere else. Palak, methe, methi, gajar, shalgam, shakarkandi, lasan." Then I said to her, "Do you prepare the seeds in your house?" And she said, "Yes, we keep the seeds in our house there with my soda." And they basically kept them in bottles there. Some of the barriers for a lot of these women were really the sense of confinement, that they weren't out in the villages usually. It's not that women didn't travel, but they didn't really have as much of a space within the village itself. There's a very heavy workload, so women are working more hours in rural areas than men. Domestic control and physical abuse. Education, so very, very strong emphasis on women's education, sometimes sometimes for marriage purposes. I'm not saying, it can be problematic when it becomes just that. And then immigration, so sort of this desire to leave Punjab. I spoke to Raman Kaur, who was about 17 years old, and she said to me, "You know, new technologies are coming and we're also getting more international. I think a lot of people want to go to foreign countries. You don't know how many people want to go foreign. They go abroad and tell us what is happening, and people have the desire to leave Punjab. I think 99% of the youth want to go abroad. The economy is much better, the jobs are much better, they can make money abroad. There are no jobs here, you don't earn much here, and there people are able to learn more, perhaps." So because of sort of the situation that a lot of these younger women were in, they weren't so focused on the environment in their village. They're more focused on having sort of a future here. And so this is where the question of economy really comes into this whole puzzle. So shaping a new ecological discourse. And what I really mean by that is, like, let's talk about the environment in Punjab. Let's talk about it. A lot of the experience of the women, what they were telling me really calls into question the vision and promise of the Green Revolution, that the Green Revolution was going to give food for rural populations. What you have here is a situation where a lot of the food system is contaminated by pesticides, and it's not feeding people in Punjab. So there's been this exclusive focus on cash crops, input and labor-intensive systems, and scientism, or like this almost the idea that science is kind of what dictates everything. And there's been, on the other side, a loss of ecological and nutritional security, the idea that women are farmers too, and this cultural knowledge of ecology that is inherent within our traditions. So really going forward from here, what I've really concluded from my experience there is that there is a strong need to assess the incentives for wheat and rice in Punjab. And this has been going on for a while, so what I'm saying is nothing new, but it's something that needs to keep being pushed so that that cropping pattern does become diversified. So extending the procurements to millets, pulses, and other native crops. Actually, so farmers can gain income from crops that are better for the environment. Research and development at PAU on biodiverse agriculture and women in agriculture. The promotion of traditional farming systems, integrated pest management using natural fertilizers and pesticides. And then really coming back to the jobs thing and the economy thing, really diversifying the development pathways into sustainable industries and services to provide jobs for the rural workforce. So this is looking at all of these industries that are in the major cities like Ludhiana and Phagwara, really looking at how some of these factories don't need to be dumping a lot of the junk that they do into the rivers, and seeing how the businesses that are coming up in Punjab can be sustainable, because we do need an economy there, but we do need a sustainable one. And then looking at skills training for the farming community so that the rural workforce can transition into other sectors. That's it. Okay. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.